I'm going to say some films, and I'm going to ask you to say if you've seen them or not.
Okay, go.
Yojimbo.
No.
Amelie.
Amelie, yes, actually.
Oh, good.
There's a musical, that's why. Okay, continue.
It's not a musical.
Yes, Amelie's a musical now. Well, okay, it came and it went.
So you saw the musical version.
No, I saw the movie, and then I was like, oh, there's a musical.
Chimes at Midnight.
No.
Touch of Evil.
No.
The Thing.
You know, I've been trying to watch it. I love watching movies for free. So I will periodically look for movies. I'm like, oh wait, I want to watch The Thing. I also really want to watch The Blob, but not the old Blob, the new Blob. I think it's like 80s or 90s Blob.
1980s where people are digested on screen.
Yes. And it's never free. So maybe I'll look it up now. When we're done filming, I'm going to look this up because I really want to watch The Thing because it's very scary. Because there's a whole, I know about the ending where it's like you don't really know. Not to spoil that, but to spoil that. You know what I'm saying? But I really want to watch The Blob. What was I saying? I really want to watch The Blob as well.
This movie both hates and loves sex so much.
Have you ever heard the phrase, mistakes follow you around? Well, get ready for a movie that takes this phrase to a whole new level. A very literal level, that is.
Mistakes follow you around. It reminds me of my college girlfriend. Hey, everybody out there listening for the very first time, or maybe not the very first time. No. Bad Steele. Hey, everybody out there listening. Maybe it's your first time, maybe it's your second time, or third time, or 15th time. We're not sure when we're dropping this episode, but this is The Critics and the Crowd, the podcast where we review the movies and media that has professionals and regulars divided. The dulcet tones to which you're listening belong to one Steele Philippak, writer, producer, filmmaker, and transmedia architect. As always, I'm joined by my talented co-host and co-producer, Liz Ramirez. Say hello, Liz.
Hello, Liz. Hi, guys. I'm Liz Ramirez, the cool co-host of The Critics and the Crowd. I'm an actress, producer, avid movie watcher, and scary movie love hater. And by that, I mean I love watching, but I hate having to go to sleep after.
Understandable. We're going to be talking today about It Follows, the 2014 cult horror hit. A brief synopsis. After having sex with her boyfriend, teenaged every gal Jay Height finds herself cursed to be the new target of a relentless supernatural entity who can track the young woman regardless of distance, location, and time. Will she pass along the curse before it's too late, or is she doomed to be murdered like so many before her?
So, Steele, this was your pick. What was it about this film that intrigued you? Was it the major Rotten Tomatoes score difference? Had you seen it before?
So I remember when this film first came out of Cannes in 2014, there was a lot of hype for it. I'm not going to say that film festival is anti-horror, but you have to have a really good film, not a movie, for it to get into that festival. So to get that kind of love, I was super stoked to see it when finally saw the release the following year. I did see it when it came out. I saw it in theaters, and I caught it again via streaming on demand. Liz, you were still in diapers at the time. How did you come across this feature?
First of all, I was 13, okay?
Diapers, yeah.
I will say, I was really, really scared to come into this film, to watching it. I had been avoiding this movie like the plague, and I tried really hard to get someone to watch with me, but unfortunately I had to watch alone. My first introduction to the piece was actually a thumbnail. Ooh. Yeah, not a video, a thumbnail of a YouTube video by the Film Theorists. Shout out Matt Pat, we miss you. This was videos on how to beat movie monsters, and specifically this one was for It Follows. I was too scared to even watch the video. Okay, and from then on, I just figured I would never watch the movie, and little did 13-year-old Liz know that she'd be hosting a podcast one day where she'd have to watch movies of many different genres, including this one.
Mm-hmm. I have doomed you to have this film follow you for the rest of your life.
Why would you do
that? The stats. Currently, It Follows has a superlative 95% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics, but only 66% from audiences, a 29-point difference. That's almost identical to another horror film we've done, Drag Me to Hell. But aside from the genre and the scares, the movies are vastly different. Drag Me to Hell is a jump scare fest with gross-out visuals, a big budget, and bright colors. It Follows is deliberately paced, that means that it works slowly, a potboiler, and made for a tiny budget of $1.3 million. which it more than made back with a $23 million haul at the box office, along with about $3.8 million from DVD and Blu-ray sales and untold numbers of rentals. Once again, a small budget horror film finds a niche, fills a niche, and makes a few people stinking rich. Rotten Tomatoes sums up the critics' view of this film in the following way, quote,
"Smart, original, and above all, terrifying. It Follows is the rare modern horror film that works on multiple levels and leaves a lingering sting."
Unquote. Quite the quote.
It Follows was written and directed by David Robert Mitchell. He had previously directed The Myth of the American Sleepover, a micro-budgeted coming-of-age dramedy, which just so happens to be eligible for the critics in the crowd with an 80% rating from pros and a 51% rating from the audiences. He later directed the highly polarized Under the Silver Lake and soon-to-be-released big-budget sci-fi film Flower Vale Street.
Micah Monroe stars as Jay Height. She'd been in a few films before this, including co-starring in The Guest, but this was really her breakout performance. She would later go on to star in such films as Independence Day Resurgence, Neil Jordan's Greta, Honey Boy, Watcher, Significant Other, and, most recently, Longlegs.
Keir Gilchrist as Paul, a longtime friend of Jay's and a potential paramour. He'd already starred in leading roles in the shows The Winner and The United States of Terra, before going on just a few years later to lead Atypical on Netflix, as well as several well-regarded films, including Flashback, where he was paired once more with Micah Monroe.
Other notable cast include Olivia Lucardi from Channel Zero, The Thing About Pam in East New York, Daniel Zavato from Penny Dreadful and The Pope's Exorcist, which is assuredly on Liz's to-watch list if she hasn't been binging it already, and a whole slew of great actors in smaller roles, not the least of which are the bevy of individuals who play the entity.
You can currently watch It Follows with an Amazon Prime, Peacock, or YouTube Premium subscription, as well as on Philo and Flex for free with ads.
Is it Philo? Philo?
Philo? Philo? I always say Philo, like a silo.
Oh, that makes sense.
Is it Philo?
I don't know.
We have to ask.
Initial thoughts. Liz, any initial or pre-existing thoughts about this piece? I know you shared that you were terrified of that thumbnail. Kind of gives us a little bit of an insight into your psyche about, what kind of scares might get to your soul. What about It Follows struck you as you were rewatching it the first time?
Yeah, well, so my pre-existing thoughts were that I was very, very scared. And so I actually, when you suggested it, I was like, wait, is that one thing that I just never really wanted to watch and I've just been avoiding this whole time? And so I looked it up. And of course, I looked to the pictures, and the first picture that pops up is that one gruesome picture. I should spoil it, where the first girl that we see is lying dead on the beach and her leg is backward, and it was really nasty. And so I was like, I don't want to watch this. And so for any of you out there who wondering how we choose these films, of course we choose based on the score, and we tried to do a themed month, and we had 4 picked out. They were like, okay, we're gonna do these 4. It was Prom Night, it was Drag Me to Hell, it was Saw, and it was It Follows. And I kept It Follows to the very, very end until I absolutely had to watch it. I was really afraid, but you know what? It wasn't that bad. I did end up watching alone, and I wasn't like too scared, but it was also very nightmare fuelish. Like, I had to sleep with my nightlight on. Nightlight, it's just a lamp. Okay, everybody, calm down.
It's okay. We can admit that we have nightlights.
You're right? I mean, why else would we have them?
I'm an adult. We're adults.
We're adults.
Mm-hmm. I watched this film when it first came out, and I remember being impressed with the visuals and setup. I also remember feeling at the time that it lost a little bit of steam in the second half, but that it was by no means a slog, even with how deliberate it was. If I had to stake a claim, I was starting off on the crowd side here, meaning about 66%. I remember liking the deliberateness and slow build, but felt it couldn't quite stick the landing to become either a favorite of mine or a good, fun-to-watch micro-budget horror film a la Halloween, Saw, which we're going to get to, or the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Have you seen any of those films? Besides Saw, obviously, because we just recorded it.
I have seen Halloween.
Ooh.
I didn't really like it. Well, I liked it, but I was just like, oh, Jamie Lee Curtis is like doing nothing, which I guess is why later she does do something, and then like new Halloween movies, which I think are really badass, which I also haven't seen, which I need to see.
Wait a second. So you think that they're badass, but you haven't seen them?
Well, because, you see I feel like nowadays every single ad for a movie is all, this is the full movie. Like, I knew the synopsis of the movie The Trap before I even watched it. M. Night, what the hell? Anyway, I love M. Night though. But, well.
Do you?
Yes, I do. Signs is my second favorite movie. Okay.
After Twisters.
After Twisters, yes. Twisters is for anyone out there wondering, we're going to make a wiki fan page for Liz. Yes, my favorite movie is Twister, 1996. Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton. Ready to do this?
Let's do it.
A young woman, Annie, flees from her house in her suburban neighborhood. Her father and neighbors ask if she needs help, but Annie denies that anything is wrong, despite being underclothed and in heels. That's not a look very many people can pull off. She does a 360 and returns to her house, hopping in her car and driving away despite her father's concerns. Later on, at night, Annie sits in the floodlights of her car as she waits on the beach, obviously terrified but unsure of what to do. She calls her parents and tells them that she loves them. It's the last time she'll speak to them, as the next morning, her mutilated corpse is found on the beach. I really did enjoy the craziness right out of the gate. You know, the audience was confused and scared, just like this young girl who is running in heels. Odd, but okay. We'll actually talk about that later. I wonder if heels in this moment, I mean, to me, I thought about it potentially representing teenage promiscuity, maybe?
That's something I hadn't even considered before. I think that there's a lot of sexiness going on in this film, and sometimes a lack of sexiness, which we'll also get into. I also really enjoyed this opening shot. It's a full one-take, 360-degree pan that keeps the horror off screen, and it really sells Annie's terror, and it's a major motif of the film, The Unseen Nightmare. She's looking over her shoulder, obviously leading something on before she flees. Then later at the beach, I was initially upset by how the light flooded the scene at the beach until I saw it was from the car. It is a nice way to have a little bit of diegetic light source. I also like that she feels like she can't tell her parents what's going on. She thinks that they'll think she's crazy. This ties into the element of STDs later on in the film. She'd rather potentially face death than admit that she had sex or screwed up.
This film uses wide shots very deliberately. So much of modern media is influenced by TV and TV directors who use a lot of tight setups for time and expense. Yet this film makes sure you see everything. A counterpoint to that, which is unseen.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you'd like to add about this opening, Liz?
No.
We next find Jay Height, a college student, taking a dip in the pool and talking with her sister. There are power lines, squirrels, a mesh pool cleaner. It's the suburbs, all right. The Height sisters are talking about Jay's upcoming date with Hugh. She's spied on by her young neighbors, then joins her friends, Paul and Yara, and sister inside for an old-fashioned movie on the television. They talk Dostoevsky, fart jokes, and teasing both familial and sisterly. The calm before the storm. From Paul's look at Jay as she leaves, we get the sense that there's something more than platonic friendship going on there, particularly as she's heading out for her date after a long sequence of her getting ready and putting on makeup.
Okay, what is up with this futuristic seashell Kindle phone, multi-use technology? What is that about? We never get an explanation. They're just introducing new technology like Star Wars and never explaining it. I mean, I don't know if that was completely necessary, but I actually have yet another thing that's going to come later that we talk about, but I just wanted to pose that question if anyone is also wondering.
I think that the director is kind of deliberately making this a little dreamlike, a little oniric, as it's called. So you've got modern technology, and yet they're always watching black and white movies on ancient TV sets. Even at this time in 2014, those TV sets would have been, something that people would
obsolete.
Look at. Very obsolete, 180p or something.
Mm-hmm.
And we get that kind of weirdness so that it's not quite ever in any exact time frame. Maybe the director, the writer, the same person, was trying to make a statement that this could happen at any time, or maybe they were just deliberately keeping it a little weird to keep us off kilter.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that later.
Mm-hmm. I just finished watching Channel Zero Butcher's Block before rewatching this film, and I slowly smiled as I saw Olivia Lucciardi here. She was the star in that series, and she has that same kind of low-key charm here as she does in that series. Did you see Channel Zero or any of those?
No, I haven't.
It's good. It's a little weird, obviously. They take creepypasta from online.
What?
Mm-hmm, and they turn it into a whole television series.
What is it? This Channel Zero?
It's called Channel Zero, and it's an anthology series, so each season is its own kind of thing, and so it kind of wraps up in 8 episodes. Some of them are better than others, and they're very weird. I wouldn't call them scary, but they're very off kilter. And actually, Butcher's Block has some pretty creepy moments, so be aware. The music here and the feel of this film are just about perfect so far, at least for Steele. It's deliberate and, as I said, dreamlike. And after that very odd opening, odd in a good way, it's a good idea to kind of ground the film again in suburbia. That is the context for most of the rest of this film. What was it like where you grew up, Liz?
You know what? It was pretty similar to where she lives. Very suburban. It was like lower middle class suburban. But yeah, I didn't have very many friends to hang out with like that, like high school friends, because I went to a high school that was far away. Not that we have to get into all that, but you did ask me what it was like where I grew up. So yeah, but I definitely felt this vibe and sort of kinship to these like young teens, almost Mystery Gang-esque. And I did enjoy that. Outside a movie theater, we meet Hugh for the first time. He's Jay's date. Maybe boyfriend? Who knows? He's a little gruff and too cool for school, but Jay is digging the vibe. Not so subtly flirting with the trade game. Who would Hugh like to trade places with? He chooses a child who has his whole life ahead of him, allowing for some not so subtle exposition of his age, 21. But when it comes time for Jay to choose, Hugh thinks she'd like to trade places with a woman in a yellow dress, who Jay cannot see. Hugh panics, but manages to just regain his composure enough to leave, head to his car, and continue their date. On the road, at a diner, unbeknownst to either of them, there seems to be a strange figure following them at least one point. Personally, I would be really weirded out by his actions, but it seems Jay is really desperate for that D and is more than happy to overlook Hugh's actions. Bad call, as after they boink for the first time the next night in the back of his car, Hugh knocks Jay out with chloroform. In this movie universe, STD stands for sexually transmitted demon. Also, so many scary naked girls. Why?
Why are you complaining about scary naked girls?
Oh my god!
This is about as far as I would go in the film before things need to pick up. It's very deliberate at the beginning, setting the tone, setting the world. The imagery is beautiful, and you really get a sense of the time, the place, the dread, but things aren't really moving. We've talked about agency in films before, and Jay's just kind of going through the motions. I needed a little more out of the main character other than pretty college girl flirting with try-hard Stubblebeard, but I do like how Hugh stops Jay dead in her tracks as she's playing with the flowers post-coitus. You know, this is like, it's an abrupt change in direction, and it stops being so dreamy and nice, and now we're like, oh no, the horror is starting. The film is saying, okay, cutesy cutaways and side-logs are done. Now we're getting to the good stuff.
Okay. Well, you might have sort of explained what my next question is, which I was wondering if someone could explain these references to grass. You know, why is she picking grass, picking the flowers? You know, we get these shots of her hands and grass quite a bit. And I was just thinking, like, is it the movie's version of you need to touch grass?
I think, you might remember that after her coital activities with Hugh, she's playing with the flowers.
Right.
And I think it's a commentary on her innocence,
Right.
that she's leaving her innocence before. We don't get a sense that this is probably her first time, but we do get the sense that she's this kind of flower child, and now she's going to be thrown into the deep end. Sexually transmitted demons, I was just kind of taking this lightly. And like, no, now you need to be afraid. It's such a trope for horror films that, it's a morality play. You have sex, you get murdered.
Yeah.
And this film is taking it to the nth degree.
Anyway, but I also was wondering, I think later there's also scenes where she's like has grass in her hands. We always go back to this sort of like earthy feeling, and I just wonder what that's about. I feel like that question's never answered.
Who knows? It could be something to get the audience just talking. Maybe it's about keeping this film almost literally grounded, literally on the ground. Or maybe there's no point at all, and the director is just trying to mess with us a little bit.
Yeah, just have some really beautiful shots in there.
There are worse things.
You're right. There's Drag Me to Hell. Anyway.
I liked the sister talk between Jay and Kelly. It was sweet. It was sincere. It was real. You also get a lot more of that oniric quality, that dream quality as they walk. They see their neighbors, including Greg, who's going to come back. And they have lots of beautiful images. What is important? Or are we just making it seem like it's important because it's a deliberate choice?
You were asking me that question, weren't you?
Yeah.
I was thinking about what I was going to say next. I wanted to bring up the Trading Places game. I just wanted to say I think it's a fun game. I wrote that in my notes. I was like, I want to play the Trading Places game. That seems fun. I mean, it's not fun until, you see a person that the person doesn't see, and then you realize, oh, maybe this is not good. But of course, it hopefully wouldn't happen in real life. Anyway.
Thoughts on intercourse in film?
I'm such a fan of it. I know I'm just like a little girl, but like I am a fan of like when it means something. Obviously, of course, it happens in lots of rom-coms, and I love rom-coms. But I'm a fan of it. Steamy is fun. Well within its bounds is fun. Hopefully not exploitative. Is that the word? Exploitative to an actor, actress, or actors all encompassing. But I like them when they're tasteful, I suppose.
Tasteful is a good way to put it. For me, sometimes, particularly in action films, it's used too often as "I've conquered you and won." In the kind of scenario where the guy has won his lady's affection and thus gets to get naked. I also hate the workarounds that are required, as here we see Jay still wearing her bra the entire way through. It's up to every actor regarding how much skin they are willing to show, but it always feels very unrealistic, frankly lazy, as there are ways to shoot around it and still give the impression of nudity. I'm not going to say that people don't have sex with their bras on in the back of cars. It always sticks out to me when that kind of stuff is depicted on film.
I guess so. What's the rating for this film?
R, and that's the other...
I guess so, right?
Yeah. Okay, we're about to see a naked woman walking across
You're right. Wait a
concrete.
second. But maybe that's also an innocence thing. It could be an actor's choice, which if it's their choice, it's their choice. But it could be like an innocence, like maybe. I mean, we talked about touching grass. That could also be something like I'm not ready to take this huge step into this big foray. No, not foyer.
Foray.
Foray. Oh my God. Let's go into the foyer, everybody. This big foray into sex and what that means. It's just a very lighthearted way, I feel like, of representing that. So I'm not opposed to bra on, especially in this context.
You know what? Now that you're talking about it, there was that sequence as she's putting her makeup on when she's like touching herself and in her underwear. We see Annie at the very beginning in skimpy clothes. We'll see Jay throughout in kind of less than standard clothing. She's in a bathing suit. She's doing this, and I kind of see what you're talking about there. That there is this little bit of innocence there, and that fact that we only see nudity with regard to the entity. That kind of there's something a little deeper there. Good point.
Thank you.
Sometime later, Jay wakes up. She's tied to a wheelchair in an unknown, creepy location. That is, every place in Detroit, Michigan. Hasn't Hugh ever heard of aftercare? No, he cares more about an unseen entity. He explains that it can take the appearance of any person and will pursue Jay relentlessly until she is either dead or passes on the curse to someone else via sexual intercourse. It will only follow at a walking pace, but it will never stop, no matter where or how far Jay goes, only changing targets back to the previous possessor of the curse when Jay dies.
Soon, the being appears in the form of a naked woman, very slowly walking toward Jay. Jay screams and panics, but Hugh helps her flee. Not before he warns Jay to have sex with someone new soon, and to not let it touch you. Jay's friends and sister, playing the most favorite of college party games, Old Maid, are there when a semi-nude Jay is literally dumped onto the street by Hugh. The police get involved, but the sex was consensual. There is no evidence of the naked woman. And Hugh? It turns out he has been living under a false identity. Modern dating, am I right, ladies?
You were just complaining about modern dating to me.
Yeah, I really was complaining about modern dating to you. It really do me like that.
I know I sound like I'm on repeat, but I feel that the shot composition in this film is superlative. We get nice variety, movement that helps sell what's being told on screen, and a gritty feel that doesn't feel overindulgent. There's a great moment where Jay is tied up and Hugh enters, out of focus in the background. Jay can't see him, and it plays up the tension while at the same time foreshadowing being chased by this entity. There's
a big exposition dump here as Hugh explains what's going on with the entity, and I think it works because of the tension that's being built. We care for Jay and we're unsure what Hugh is doing, so it's not just him talking, but us almost literally seeing through Jay's eyes as she tries to determine what's going on.
Mm-hmm. The slow approach of the entity combined with Jay's terror helps me believe Hugh. Add in the right amount of discordant music, and it's clear we're in new territory, both literally and figuratively. I can only imagine how it felt on set, however. A naked woman walking across a concrete floor doesn't seem all that scary to me, and it's why so many people working on films say that they don't know what they have until they finally see the movie itself. I was just struck by that. I was watching like, oh, this is music and it's scary. I actually did buy into the horror. But then I'm thinking, like, what's it like? Okay, Sarah, like, get over there. And then just, if you could walk across concrete, like, slow, deliberate, like, and, okay, yeah, Jackie, okay, there's a crazy naked woman. It's so crazy.
I like your impression of David Robert Mitchell. I know you probably never heard him speak, but I think it's funny. Yeah, no, I completely bought into the horror. I was very scared. I had my blanket up by my eye like this, and I had one eye covered and one eye open. And I was like, oh my God, naked, scary lady. Just like in The Shining, I was wondering if she'd ever turn into anything else. And then she does. Well, multiple different things, comes in as many different entities, is invisible as well as different people in everyone's lives. And I think this monster is by far the scariest I've ever encountered in a movie. Demons are scary, but you don't know how to defeat it. All you can do is run. It can take any form. You won't know unless someone else tells you, so you always have to have someone with you. You can't, how can you sleep at night? This literally putting myself into Jay's shoes, into anyone's shoes really, dealing with the demon. I don't know how I would do it. I was just really scared. And I think the director did a great way of conveying that confusion, us really seeing through Jay's eyes. Because I will say, first half of the movie, I was confused. I was like, what's happening? I was in my notes, I'm literally writing down like, okay, but if he sleeps with her, then like, are they both infected or is it just one person infected? And will it go all the way back? And like, what happens? Like, can she pass it on? But will they both be infected? I don't know. I was trying to figure out what was going on. And I think it was really great because that's exactly what's happening today. Mm-hmm. And so I enjoyed that, trying to make the discoveries as we went on.
Important filmmaking tip. Explain things as they happen. Don't try to do too much up front. Get just enough information. This film is walking on a tightrope. It's very high concept. Have sex, get chased by a demon. So just enough information and we're on the road.
Yeah.
After some gossip from the neighbors and Jay's own mother, Jay returns to school. We get some heavy-handed finger-wagging from the director in the form of a whiteboard that stresses metaphor before Jay sees an older woman approaching her. Avon calling? Maybe not, because nobody else can see her, so Jay adroitly flees to get advice from Paul and Kelly, along with ice cream from the place where they work. If you can't stop an unrelenting horror from chasing you, you might as well drown your sorrows in Rocky Road.
Jay spills what happened to her, and though they're skeptical, Kelly, Paul, and Yara spend the night with Jay to make her feel better, though sweet guy Paul gets more than his share of insults because of his not-so-hidden crush on Jay. Jay and Paul have a nice little moment on the couch. He hasn't spent the night there since they were kids. Before a window breaks somewhere in the house. Paul assures Jay that there's nothing in the house, but Jay is then pursued by a half-naked, urinating woman and a tall man who nobody but her can see. Jay rightly books it without asking more questions. We get a nice little callback to the beginning of the film here when Jay flees. We see her racing away on her bike like Annie did in her car, and it creates a nice bit of unseen exposition. How long has this been going on? Who has this figure killed? How many? How?
With some music and a little bit of dramatic tension, this film makes an old woman approaching across the quad or a half-naked cheerleader with bladder control problems just as scary as a xenomorph in an Aliens film. You don't need splashy effects or jump scares to have some horror, people. Jay flees in her unmentionables to a nearby park, the film once again bashing us over the head with the juxtaposition of innocence and horror. Her friends arrive to comfort her, and then they and the plot catch a lucky break. Greg, who we've previously seen washing his car and sharing a spliff with a squeeze, offers to drive the crew to Hugh's house, which Jay has seen but never been in due to him being embarrassed by it. It's no wonder, because after a brief travelogue, the crew find themselves exploring Hugh's dilapidated house that is littered with early warning detection systems in the forms of broken glass and bottles strung up around windows. Greg pervs a bit on the girls, Kelly does an inspection to determine if she could possibly flip this place on Zillow, and Paul discovers a photo of Hugh in a Letterman's jacket. They go to the high school from whence that came and discover that Hugh is actually Jeff Redmond. Does Paul get thanked, though? No. He has to watch Greg get all handsy with Jay.
Ugh. I thought it was really funny that she flees to the park. I was like, an abandoned park in the dark, and you thought that was a good idea, Jay? And then all her friends there, and everyone's just like cool with being at the park, alone. And then they accept this ride from this neighbor, this like random dude who I guess Jay has a crush on. And I was just like, another one of those horror film silly things happening. And I was like, why do the silly things have to happen? But also that man, that's another thumbnail that was used.
The tall man.
He's like, what? Like,
He looks like almost 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
He's at least 6'6".
Yeah, at least. Seeing that actually happening, real time was very scary. You're right. You don't really need all that like flash and that like to set this up. I was right when, Paul leaves to go check on the scare. I was like, don't leave her alone. Don't leave her alone, Paul. Go back, go back. And because, they have this like shot where they could see like either something could come from inside. They don't end up using it where like something comes from the hall and she like goes and investigates and sees it herself. But I was really scared. David Robert Mitchell, he can set up these scenes so well.
Yeah, the sequences here take place at all times during the day. I like that we get some horror during the day.
Right.
A lot of horror just happens at night because naturally it's at night. It's scary. You can't see. And we do get that here too in the park. Jay is sitting and she sees people approaching. It's her friends. She sees someone approaching. It's Greg. And that kind of also builds a little bit of that tension. Can we all see what's going on? Are these people for real? But I like that it's all over the place. You have no place to turn to. This is not From, that television show where it's only at night when the crazy critters come out and try and eat you alive. I like the small details throughout this section as well. Without any verbal explanation, we see what Jeff has been up to in order to hide from this entity. We also see a few people walking directly toward the camera. Are they the entity or just randos? The film, despite its deliberate pace, forces the viewer to come to their own conclusions.
Jeff has moved back in with his parents, as edgelords are wont to do, after committing assault. He reiterates the rules so that everybody in the group and the audience gets a full explanation of this entity, how Jeff contracted this STD. Curse. A one-night stand. He tells them to drive as far as possible so they can have some time to think. Maybe just passing it along wouldn't be the worst thing. They have a while to figure it out because Greg helpfully offers up his parents' lake house as a place to crash, far away from belligerent, unseen demons. It works for all of one evening because the next morning, the entity arrives in the form of Yara and attacks. Jay's friends try to help out, but it's no use. Jay has to flee in Greg's car, but gets, a quarter mile before she crashes. Jay awakens in the hospital with a broken arm. She talks with Greg, who insists that the entity isn't real. Jay decides to make him buy into that and sleeps with him. Jay later sees this entity entering Greg's house and in the form of Greg's mother, kills the poor lad. Looks like the curse is back on Jay. Poor Greg.
Poor Greg. Poor Paul. Like, Paul is trying to get into Jay's pants, and she's like, no. Oh, random dude, Greg? Perfect. Yeah, here we go.
Greg is more of a bad boy. I was like, oh, Greg. But also like, oh, Greg.
Yeah.
But also, honestly, didn't feel bad for him. Didn't feel bad.
Yeah, no, he did actually bring it upon himself.
He did. He was like, I don't believe in this. And he sleeps with her. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, you just want to sleep with her. You're stupid.
AIDS denialism. It's a killer, literally. This was the period in the film where it kind of lost some steam for me. I was with it right up until the entity grabs Jay. Jeff, that dude with the stubble beard, had said not to let it touch Jay, but it does, and it kind of goes robo-dope on her for a bit. Loses a lot of its horror at that point. I think that's kind of like with every horror film. Once you see the creature, it loses a little bit of its majesty.
Yeah. I want to point out how Greg's death was wild, and I was just trying to figure out the metaphors behind that. What a horrible, horrible way to go. Literally watching that, mouth open. I was like, what is happening? I guess maybe it's like, listen to your parents, kids, or your parents could come back as demons and kill you in a really horrible way.
Or talk to your parents as well. Greg said my mother doesn't care. We have this whole film is kids not talking to their parents. We get very loose. We get some gossip from Jay's mother. We get people talking, but for the most part, it's the kids on their own, which, that's kind of the trope. But I think there is a statement being made there, or maybe a cigar is just a cigar, and there is nothing deliberate here. I doubt that. It seems like David Robert Mitchell has a plan with this kind of film. He's very deliberate, so it would shock me. At the same time, who knows? I
also want to point out how you were talking about how you lost steam here. Like, I really feel with how deliberate and how slow this movie is, I was tired. I was tired, but I loved that. I loved that I was tired because, in the end, we'll talk about that later, but I felt like Jay. And that's why I was like, oh man, this movie's like still going on. And it's unrelenting. Mm-hmm. And after watching and after thinking about it, I was like, wait a second. I enjoy that a lot because we're just like her, right there with her, confused, tired, not really getting sleep, surrounded by friends, but like at what cost, seeing, people die because of what has happened to her. I did in a weird way enjoy that tiredness.
What has happened to her? You mean sex?
No, that she's being chased by this scary demon that is, she says it can't touch her or else she'll die, but she doesn't know how it kills until Greg. She knows how it can hurt people, with all of her friends. He throws Paul and it scratches him or something like that. And then, it busts through this door. So it has like physical power. And these invisible shots where it's like pulling her hair up like that. Another iconic shot. Same with the iconic shot of the cover photo, in the car with that little light on. I was like, wow, yeah. That's all I had to say about that.
Perfectly put.
Thank you.
Jay is not out of the woods. Well, actually, technically, she is outdoors, where she spends the night, after which the film implies that she sleeps with 3 rando guys in order to further delay the attack. Paul is willing too, but Jay keeps good old Paul in the friend zone. It must suck to be such a hard luck that a woman would literally rather be strangled to death than pity screw you.
The entity, having satiated its thirst off-screen with those 3 men, is back on the trail of Jay. She and her Scooby-Doo crew have had it and are going to hatch one last plan. Lure the entity into a pool and electrocute it to death. A la the Gremlins at the end of Gremlins 2. Love that movie. Silent but not stupid. The entity instead turns the tables on Jay before then attempting to drown her. Paul finally comes to the rescue. After wounding Yara, he manages to shoot the entity several times, leaving the pool to fill with blood. Yara recuperates in the hospital. Jay finally gives it up to Paul, and the 2 walk down the street, hand in hand. Unseen by them, however, a figure is stalking them. Is this film really over? We won't know until the release of the sequel. They follow.
And yes, that is a film that is currently in production, supposedly.
I was actually wondering about that. I was going to ask you, is this really happening?
Supposedly, I mean, it's Hollywood, so,
You're right.
It's was in pre-production. It's like The Crow,
Yeah.
the remake of which was in pre-production for a decade. We'll get to that, because that's on our list of things that qualify for the critics in the crowd, unfortunately.
In my mind, I was like, yes, the electricity in the pool trick. I thought their plan was really dumb, and I guess it's the best team to come up with. However, I did watch a YouTube video, me and my YouTube videos, of David Robert Mitchell describing the final bit, this sort of like, I did watch a YouTube video.
We both had the same note.
We did have the same, I was like, wait a second. I was like, this is my note, but it's not my note because I didn't write that. David Robert Mitchell agrees that this plan was dumb, He says, it's the stupidest plan ever, and it's a kid movie plan. It's something that Scooby-Doo and the gang might think of, and that was sort of the point. What would you do if you were confronted by a monster and found yourself trapped within a nightmare? Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, David.
Yeah, I kind of like that angle. This is a film in which young people try to solve their way out of a problem without bothering their parents or believing their parents would help. Maybe they would or wouldn't, but it says something that the main characters don't believe that would be so.
This movie, it felt very long, and for us to never be able to defeat the demon, only to outrun it, maybe, it's a metaphor for STDs that live inside you forever, that can live inside you forever, and with the potential to kill you if not treated properly and looked at constantly. I guess I could see that. Again, I talked about the tiredness. It's like, oh my God, it's just never ending. And then Greg going and infecting himself. And then, you know what? This is a thought I just had as we were reading the last part of the synopsis where Jay has to sleep with those 3 guys on that boat. I also thought of the horror of that, that having to, sleep with somebody, 3 people, 3 somebodies that you don't know. I thought that was another part of the horror. It was just so gross, and putting yourself in those shoes, especially as a woman, that was probably second scariest parts for me.
Imagine being that guy, though. Oh, hey, there's oh, really? Oh, okay, great. Oh, that was awesome, right, guys? Hey, who's this person who's swimming across?
That's exactly how they died. That's how I imagine it too. Yeah, no, just like having to give yourself up that way. I felt so hard for Jay. Like, what more can this demon take besides my life? My dignity is taken, my sanity is taken, my innocence is taken. But yeah, it's pretty awful when you think about it. Even with a sex demon chasing her, Jay still pulls. I'll say that. She gets 2 guys to sleep with her.
5, really?
Okay, yes, 5 to 3 on the thing. To help her pass this thing. Well, 2 guys helping to pass this thing. 2 guys were like, well, I'm going to help you. Well, Greg was really just stupid. He didn't believe. But Paul was, really cared for her and helped her. Whenever anyone was like, yeah, let me help you. Let me do this. I wanted to literally throw my pillow at the freaking screen because I was like, why? Well, I mean, like, I understand if I was in the shoes, I'd be like, thank you for the help. But like, then what if they die and then it's on you? Literally, that just happened to Greg. You want that again? And if the demon's coming back for you after you slept with those 3 guys, wouldn't you feel awful? Like, you have 4 deaths on your hand. But it's like, who do you want to die more? 4 guys or yourself?
And yet, people have unprotected sex every day in this world. Yeah. And they willingly bring this upon themselves.
Yeah. Trivia. Watching an Anatomy of a Scene YouTube video posted by the New York Times featuring director David Robert Mitchell. I totally recommend watching it, by the way. He talked about the choice of the girl in the first shot wearing heels. They were a play on the conventions of the horror movie genre, specifically Woman in Peril. Huh. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. We brought up the heels, how it was an odd choice. He did talk about it in the video being an odd choice. He's like, that doesn't seem like something, that should... Everyone asks me that. Mm-hmm. And so that was his answer. And I thought, oh, well, that's really cool,
It speaks to the deliberateness of this film.
Exactly.
That the choices that the director, the actors, this is not by happenstance. There is a rhyme and reason, even if that rhyme and reason might be to kind of throw you off guard. David Robert Mitchell, writer and director, had recurring dreams as a child about being pursued by some unstoppable entity. He claims that it probably stemmed from the anxiety he felt due to his parents' divorce. Not a shock.
After doing some of my research, I found that there is no set time frame to this movie, and it's dream quality, like you said. And at first, I didn't know that, and I wanted to bring that up because I wanted people to understand and feel the confusion right with me. And so now we get to explain and understand this confusion. The surroundings, even, the tech used. Some cars in the film are from the 1960s and some are from the 80s, the futuristic shell phone to the CRT televisions from the 90s, even before then. But yeah, we really get that dreamlike quality of we don't know where we're at.
Mitchell was ambivalent about the plot at first, as he was struggling to find a way to make it coalesce. He's quoted as saying, quote, "When you say it out loud, it sounds like the worst thing ever," unquote. I don't know about that. It's a high concept. You have sex, you die, so that kind of seems interesting. It really depends upon the follow-through, and I think that his choices sold it.
Fun fact, the color red or pink is used to foreshadow the coming of the demon.
I didn't notice that. That's
Me
a really cool
either.
idea. I'm going to go back and check
Me
on
too.
that.
Even though I don't really want to, I'll do it.
But now you know all the scares, so it's not nearly as scary.
I guess so, but it was just like, I'll explain later, but I was just so tired by the movie.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Many critics have commented on the role that sexual transmission plays in the curse itself. Mitchell wanted the curse to be transferable, and, given teenagers' hypersexuality and reckless abandon, settled on intercourse as a natural way to pass the following along. The film doesn't outright make a comparison to STDs, but it's pretty clear that one of the potential themes or motifs is culpability with one's actions and sexual transmission. Shot entirely in Michigan for tax benefits, and mostly in Detroit, it was done on a tight budget and timescale, but with lots of visual flair to help establish an otherworldly vision of deliberate horror. Mitchell and DP Mike, I'm going to get this name wrong, Gialakis.
Sounds good. It sounds good.
Yeah, thank you. Credited George Romero and John Carpenter and still photographer Gregory Crewdson with inspiration for the look. The Redford Theater at the beginning of the film has a fully functioning Wurlitzer organ and was the site of the premiere of The Evil Dead. Sam Raimi, the director of that film, and your favorite, Liz, Drive Me to Hell, is a Michigan boy as well.
Pros. The cinematography was quite beautiful. They have these wide shots that we talked about before that bring such a beauty to this film, a very deliberateness to this film, and it's a very interesting choice. Also, these iconic shots, the car sex scene being one of them.
Yeah, there are a lot of great shots, and there's a lot of visual flair in this film without being too overeager in terms of slickness. That opening pan and push nails what's called the opening image, which in good films helps to establish tone, style, the promise of the premise, or what the film is promising that it's going to give the audience. I also like the usage of single-point perspective, where the subject is right dead center. It's used by Stanley Kubrick, famously, as well as Wes Anderson and many others. These actors, while not strictly teenagers, definitely look, feel, and act like actual teenagers, unlike those fake teenagers we watched in Prom Night. I'm not going to say that Micah Monroe, Kiara Gilchrist et al. Are unattractive. They're still Hollywood. But there is a certain kind of middle-class grunge to them that makes them feel like it's their own story. rather than yet another glitz and glamour slasher pick.
Yeah, I think the acting was very good. I have zero complaints. You know, everyone's performance was super enjoyable, super believable.
The only problem I had, I just didn't see the appeal of Hugh. Like, Jay was completely smitten with this guy. He's like, yeah, whatever. The kid, he got his whole life in front of him. I live in a house. I smoke dope. I'm going to move back with my parents to their basement.
That's just so high school, you know, college. Like it's so.
No, I know.
God, like it feels like the everyman. You know what I'm saying? The everyman that every girl's attracted. This is like this like mid man. This just like he's just got. But no girl at that age can see through that, right? So it felt so real and true to this story, and makes perfect sense that she would sleep with him. You know what I'm saying?
Poor Paul in the friend zone.
Poor Paul in the friend zone. The soundtrack. I really enjoyed the spooky 80s synth beat. It really fits this sort of heart-thumping feel of the movie.
Yeah, speaking of John Carpenter, very much like Halloween, that kind, as you say, the synthesizer.
Yeah.
And it starts out sweet and melodic, and then it gets very discordant, and it does a good job of heightening the sensations and the sensorial feel of the pick without drowning it out or forcing you into a particular headspace.
The director is incredible at making these suspenseful, scary moments. These visuals, as well as the visual effects, I think they were killer. This invisible demon scared the crap out of me. And so I think for its time, it's only 2015? 2014, yeah. I was impressed. Nothing seemed weird, CGI, or out of place. Of course, a lot of it was practical, which that helps. But yeah, I was impressed. I had no complaints.
Yeah, for a budget of $1.3 million, this really felt like a much bigger picture. I say this a lot. We cover a lot of these kinds of movies on this podcast, the lower budgeted films. With this kind of cast, with this kind of crew, with the various locations, the settings, as we said before, you don't need huge moments and huge elements of CGI to really sell horror. The Understated does a perfectly good job.
Cons. The loose ends in this film are sort of where I felt lost. I felt lost a lot of the time. Like I wasn't getting something. And maybe that was just upon first watch, not really. As we've delved further into maybe these metaphors, I grow in appreciation, but I feel like upon first watch, that's when it should all click and hit. And so I feel like a lot of it went over my head, potentially. And I'm usually not bad at spotting them, but I was just tired by the end of the movie. I didn't really want to keep watching.
It's not an overly long picture by any stretch of the imagination. It is deliberately paced, as we've talked about. And so there is a sort of fatigue that does set in for the film at a certain point. For me, once we actually understand the entity and it's grabbing and throwing, that's kind of where it loses a lot of steam. Audience imagination is always going to trump actualization. So I will, devil's advocate, the director has to walk a fine balance. If he explains too much, then we just lose all the majesty. We lose all of the fear, the tension. If he doesn't do enough, then we're left with these hanging threads. Are these figures actually stalking our leading lady and hero at the end of the film? Is it just another piece of commentary? Is a cigar just a cigar? We don't know. They were deliberate choices, and I can understand why that would be frustrating.
That's my last con, really. The ending of this film. I really dislike when things end like this sort of like open-ended thing, and I don't like the potential that it could be a sequel. I like when things are closed. I don't need pretty bows, but a nice Boy Scout knot would be perfectly fine. But it just, when you leave it open-ended like that, it's like, oh well, it leaves room for like a sequel, and I hate that. Oh my god, I hate that. Yeah, I had enough of it with freaking the Avengers and stuff. So that was fun. That was the point. You go and you wait for the end credit scene, whatever.
You didn't like the part where Samuel L. Jackson shows up and recruits Jay into the Avengers? And yet you say this, and yet Drag Me to Hell is a very definitive ending. And you're like, I hate that too.
But it was stupid ending, okay? Don't start with me.
Personal opinion.
I rather liked this film upon watching it for the third time. Very deliberate, very slow. I find that it was, as I said, dreamlike, very hypnotic. I enjoyed the acting. The look of it was superlative. All the problems that I have are just that kind of grungy feel to it, but that's the choice that it's making, so I can't really fault the film for that. As I said, it does lose a little steam in the back half, but I still feel that it wraps itself up nicely into a nice package that was enjoyable throughout.
You really think it's a nice package?
I do think it's a nice package. I like
That's what you said.
I couldn't make a joke quick enough.
This movie was just not it for me, Steele. You know, I will give credit where credit is due because credit is due, you know, to the cinematography, the acting, the soundtrack, the direction, the writing. But I would never watch this again. I just don't like it. I was confused and tired and trying my best from saying screw it and turning off the TV from the actions happening on the screen, like the two guys freaking infecting themselves. I guess the movie does also pose the scary question of how far you'll go to stay alive. But, you know, it's just the film itself is so draining. And if you're up for that, you're up for that. But there's no happy ending. You know, we go through all this work for nothing. And it's like, maybe that's just a metaphor for life.
I think there's a very happy ending for Paul, as a matter of
fact. Well, Paul could die at any time, first of all. It doesn't feel worth a second watch, you know, even for those who really like the good scares. I mean, I might watch it a second time to see if there's like pink and red before the person comes. I mean, the it comes. But I just, like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Verdict.
The critics and the crowd are divided. Currently, It Follows has a 95% ranking on Rotten Tomatoes, all but a perfect score. And it has 66% from the audience. A little better than 50-50, a little better than 2 stars, so about 2.5 stars. How do you feel? Who got it right? Was it the critics? Was it the crowd? Was it both? Or was it neither, Liz?
I think it was the crowd. I think it was the crowd with this one. This movie, for me, it will get 2 stars. You know, it's better than Drag Me to Hell.
Oh.
It's better than Prom Night. But I can't get behind watching it again. And I feel a true measure of goodness quality from me is if I would like to see the film again, if I could get it upon first watch. And maybe that's just like saying something about me as a viewer, but I'm just like, whatever, I don't care. It's how I feel. Sorry to anyone disappointed out there, but this film, you know, will not be following me.
I'm going to lean critics on this one. It's not my favorite horror film of all time, but I feel that it does a lot with its budget, with its actors, with its look. I'm not going to binge this like I would with an Aliens. You know, there is a difference between what I would feel is a good film and what is a film that I will rewatch over and over again. I love Big Trouble in Little China, but I'm never going to compare that to Citizen Kane. Here, this is a film. It's a motion picture. It does very well with what it has. So I am going to say that the critics got it right. So we're divided, Liz.
Divided.
Across this table, across this film.
We must fight now to the death.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us on this episode of The Critics and the Crowd. Please stay tuned. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Any last thoughts, Liz?
Practice safe sex?
Oh, that's a good
Always.
one. Don't raw dog a random, people.
Oh my God. Okay. The Critics and the Crowd is hosted by Liz Ramirez and Steele Philippek. Editing and production handled by Steele. Social media by Wendy Dobkin. Logo by Aria Feliciano. Music by Joel Studler, provided by a Humble Bundle. All audio effects are sourced through freesound.org and used under the Creative Commons license. If you feel that we used a piece of audio to which you own the rights, please email helmstarmedia@gmail.com.